Hey there, I'm your host, Jeremy Burke Miller, and today we're exploring the forgotten 80s fantasy animated series Visionaries, Knights of the Magical Light. In today's world, we can't even go a single day without relying on technology to fulfill our needs. Living without technology and electricity is unthinkable, as we now become reliant on machines for even the most minor tasks. Now, if all this technology were to disappear one day, it would have catastrophic effects all over the world. Visionaries, Knights of the Magical Light was an exciting show from the 80s that explored the concept of a world where all technology had stopped working. Instead, the Visionaries are now bestowed with magical powers, and they must adapt to this new life. Though not as popular as other cartoon series such as He-Man or Thundercats, Visionaries was still quite a wonderful series. Today we will be exploring a few episodes of the show and tell you all there is to know about the Visionaries and their world of magic. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. What was the show all about? Created by Sunbro Productions, The Visionaries Knights of the Magical Light was a sci-fi show released in 1987. It ran for one season and consisted of 13 episodes that were released over a span of 1 year. Like other popular cartoon series of the 80s, the Visionaries series also released a merch line with the show that consisted of toy figurines of the main characters. Along with the toy line, the show was also followed by a comic series that released new issues bi-monthly. The Visionaries show was based on a planet where technology had stopped working, causing the people to go into a frenzy, while the evil Darkstorm used the lack of technology to his advantage to take over the New Valeric. Leoric and his group of warriors defended the place with all their might. Later on, Darkstorm and Leoric's groups were bestowed with magical abilities by the wizard Merklin, and thus began the Age of Magic. Let us explore the storylines in more detail, and have a look at a few episodes of the Visionaries. Exploring the initial episodes and the overall story arc. Visionaries premiered in 1987 with the episode The Age of Magic Begins. The episode dives right into the story of the Visionaries, while the show's soundtrack plays in the background. A voiceover tells us the story is set in a time when magic is more powerful than science, and only those who can control magic can control destiny. They are the Visionaries. The episode then covers the history of the planet Prismos, in a faraway galaxy where technology has advanced to a great extent and made life easier for about 7,000 years. The people of Prismos had taken control of all energy sources, but the realignment of the three blazing suns of Prismos marked the end of this age of technology. As the suns aligned, all technology started malfunctioning on Prismos, and all hell broke loose. Not even scientists could provide an explanation for this phenomenon, and slowly, Prismos ran out of its electricity supplies. For many years, the people of Prismos had been divided into groups of good and evil, as they have been trying to get accustomed to this new life without technology. The evil Darkstorm wishes to take over the New Valeric regions on the planet, and his army of followers often attack the place in the hopes of seizing it. However, he is opposed by Leoric, the leader of the Spectral Knights, who fights off Darkstorm and tries his best to prevent New Valeric from being seized by his followers. Both Darkstorm and Leoric need an external force, or some manpower in order to fight each other. Eventually, the wizard Merklin makes an appearance, declaring that the Age of Magic has now begun. Merklin visits Darkstorm at his castle and tells him that he has a shrine on top of Iron Mountain, which isn't so far from Darkstorm's castle. Merklin further tells him that this shrine is full of all sorts of magical items, but Darkstorm does not believe him. The center of Darkstorm's throne room has a hole in it, and when Darkstorm pushes a lever, it causes the hole to open. Since Merklin is standing right on top of it, the wizard loses balance and falls deep into the hole. Meanwhile, Darkstorm laughs over Merklin's claims about magic, as he finds the whole thing ridiculous. On the other side, Merklin uses his crystal ball to escape Darkstorm's castle, and decides to pay a visit to Leoric. Merklin tells Leoric that he wishes to teach them the ways of magic, and even tells him all about his magical shrine. After Merklin takes his leave, Leoric and his advisor, Ektar, discuss the chances of actually finding a magical shrine, and decide to look into it. However, they are unaware that one of Darkstorm's men, Mordred, is eavesdropping on their conversation. Mordred returns to Darkstorm and tells him about Leoric's plans to visit the shrine. Darkstorm decides he cannot let Leoric gain an advantage, and is now ready to pursue this quest of magic. Darkstorm and his trusted right-hand man, Rekon, make fun of Mordred, but nevertheless prepare themselves to go on this quest. In the meantime, Mirklin gathers a crowd of people living on Prismos, and promises to reward them with magical powers if they find this shrine. Everybody starts making their way through the mountains, and find themselves facing an obstacle course in order to reach the shrine. More and more people decide to head back and give up after every new obstacle. Eventually, the only people pursuing the shrine are Darkstorm and Leoric with their selective group of followers. Darkstorm even uses Mordred as bait to distract Leoric and his followers in order to get the lead. Leoric and his followers soon move past Mordred and are faced with a new obstacle in the form of a giant monster made of stone. Leoric cleverly distracts the monster, and they move past it while Mirklin keeps an eye on them from afar. In the meantime, Viralina from Darkstorm's group of followers tries to sneak up on Galadria, who is the only female knight in Leoric's group. They fight each other and end up in trouble as a sea monster attacks them. The two opposing parties keep stirring up trouble for each other, while also facing Mirklin's obstacles in order to reach the shrine. Darkstorm gathers his followers and lays on an ambush on Leoric. When Mirklin intervenes and declares that there's no need to fight, he points to the shrine and said that there's enough magic for everyone. He then labels all 14 final contenders as visionaries, and promises them magical powers in exchange for occasionally performing some tasks for him. Mirklin tells them all about his magical totems, each of which has its unique magical ability. For instance, Arzon from the group of spectral knights receives the totem of an eagle that gives him knowledge. Sindar from Darkstorm's group of warriors receives a gorilla totem that gives him the power of destruction, and so on. In this manner, all of Darkstorm's and Leoric's followers receive a unique animal totem that give them special powers. Leoric himself receives the totem of the lion, which provides him with the power of wisdom, while Darkstorm receives the totem of the mollusk, which gives him the power of decay. Mirklin even tells them that they now have the power of transforming their human selves into the animals of their unique magical totems. Moreover, all of the visionaries are given special magical sticks, known as a power staff, that give them their powers. However, these power staves have limited powers, and they will grow weaker with each use. Mirklin tells them that their power staff needs to be recharged back at this shrine when they run out of their magic, and then takes his leave. Darkstorm then proposes a treaty that states that magic should only be used to preserve peace on Prismos. Though both parties do not wholeheartedly trust each other, they agree to uphold the treaty to ensure that this age of peace never ends. Towards the end of the episode, Darkstorm reveals that he has no intentions of keeping peace on Prismos. He sends the evil Viralina to visit Leoric, and Viralina uses her powers to disguise herself as Galadria and sneaks up on Leoric. However, Leoric's power staff of knowledge reveals Viralina's true intentions as the episode comes to an end. In the next episode, titled The Dark Hand of Treachery, Darkstorm breaks his end of the peace treaty and devises an evil plan to defeat Leoric. The episode begins right where it left off, with Viralina revealing her true form and launching into an attack on Leoric. Leoric's power from his totem starts to fade, and he is left alone to fend for himself when a group of Darkstorm's followers ambush him. In the meantime, some of Darkstorm's followers who aren't bestowed with magical totems are sent to do manual labor when they stumble across a motor vehicle device. They are surprised to see a functioning piece of technology and try to fly the vehicle across the skies. They take the vehicle to Darkstorm, who is unable to operate the vehicle after all. Only Rekon and Mordred can currently drive these motor vehicles, and Darkstorm decides to use these vehicles to attack Leoric's group of followers. Darkstorm's forces soon corner the two knights, Cryotech and Galadria. While the Darkling Lords capture Cryotech, Galadria escapes to Velaric to get more help. Viralina starts chasing Galadria, but she fails to capture her, and Darkstorm mocks her over her failure. Meanwhile, Galadria returns to Leoric's palace and informs the Spectral Knights about Darkstorm's attacks. They prepare for an attack while Darkstorm's men make their way to New Velaric and break into Leoric's palace. Darkstorm demands that they give up the place, and a war for power soon breaks out. Sindar unleashes the beast within him and transforms into a gigantic gorilla who causes a lot of destruction to the palace. However, Sindar returns to his normal state when he spots a tiny cat and doesn't want to do harm to the little animal. Meanwhile, Ektar rushes out with a power staff and fights against Darkstorm himself. Darkstorm soon captures Ektar, steals his totem, and then asks the other Spectral Knights to surrender to his power as well. However, they refuse to accept Darkstorm's orders, and the villain then decides to hold the group captive in his dungeon until they are willing to serve him. Darkstorm then calls a meeting of the common people and declares that he will now take over New Volaric. He coerces the public to hail him as their master, while Leoric and his group of warriors are also forced to succumb to Darkstorm's rule. Leoric remembers that his power staff advised him to become one with the light, and he finally realizes this code must be related to the Spectral Knights. The group comes together and pledges their allegiance as one, as they name themselves the Spectral Knights, dedicated to bringing light to the darkness of the world. The Spectral Knights' adventures continue in the next episode titled Quest for the Dragon's Eye, as they try to find a way to escape Darkstorm's dungeons. In the meantime, Recon loses his cool at the other Darkling Lords, who try to push him under the bus in front of Darkstorm. The Spectral Knights are left unprotected amid this chaos, and they try to escape the castle. Leoric takes the lead and manages to get the others out of the dungeon. They decide to get Ector's totem back from Darkstorm, and then manage to escape the palace grounds. They even steal Darkstorm's motor vehicles and manage to hack into most of them. Darkstorm pays no attention to the Spectral Knights, since he was caught up in the middle of the Darklings fight. Meanwhile, the Knights even drain Darkstorm's staff of its power, leaving him helpless and without any magic. While Darkstorm tries to escape, the Spectral Knights follow him and his Darkling Lords and try to get their hands on them. After a lot of chaos and fighting, the Spectral Knights get rid of the Darklings and trap them in prison. They return to New Volaric, and Leoric declares that Darkstorm's reign of tyranny is over. Leoric sends Darkstorm and his Darklings to work in a warehouse, where they're made to do manual labor as punishment for their crimes. Before they leave, Merklin approaches the Darklings and hands a unique key to Recon in case they need his help. Though Darkstorm has had a hard time adjusting to this life, Recon refuses to take the key and declares that he would use it only when he truly requires Merklin's help. In the meantime, the people of New Volaric face some difficulties with the crops due to the water shortage. The Spectral Knights decide to visit Merklin to ask for a solution, while Ector volunteers to stay back and guard the Darkling Lords. Meanwhile, the Darkling Lords persuade Recon to use the key. As soon as he touches the key, all of the Darkling Lords are freed from their shackles, and they disappear into thin air. Ector discovers that they have escaped and blamed himself for letting them out of his sight. While the other Spectral Knights reach the Iron Mountain, the Darkling Lords also reach the place, and they launch an attack on the Knights. Ector follows them and then saves the Knights from the Darkling Lords' attacks. The Spectral Knights reassure Ector that it's not his fault that the Darkling Lords escaped. Since they seem to be having some magic on their side, they visit Merklin and find themselves face to face with the Darkling Lords, who've shown up to ask Merklin for more magical powers. Leoric challenges them to a fight and wishes to settle this once and for all, when Merklin declares that there will be no fighting in his shrine. He tells them that in order to get more magical powers, they must go on a quest for the Dragon's Eye. He lets them dip their power staves in his sacred pool for the last time, and then gives them a map for the Dragon's Eye. While the Spectral Knights leave with the map, the Darklings stay behind and refuse to succumb to Merklin's demands. They try to attack Merklin, but the all-powerful wizard deflects all their attacks with his orb. While the Spectral Knights get a head start on their quest, the Darkling Lords soon follow them. Once they reach their location on the map, the Visionaries locate the Dragon's Eye. However, the eye is in possession of the legendary wizard Falkama. The Spectral Knights try to get their hands on the Dragon's Eye, but it proves to be a challenging task. Finally, they succeed in their mission and return to Merklin with the Dragon's Eye. Merklin is satisfied with their service and agrees to charge their power staves once again. However, Leoric puts his foot down and expresses that only charging the power staff is not good enough. He asks Merklin for some magic to help with their agriculture problem, and though Merklin agrees to help them, he asks them to keep this a secret from the Darkling Lords. The Spectral Knights return to New Volaric and successfully solve the agriculture problem, as food starts to grow within seconds of them sprinkling the magic. The Spectral Knights are faced with a new problem soon, as the Darkling Lords create more trouble in the next episode called The Price of Freedom. Darkstorm and his group come across a man from the city of Khmer, who is surprised to see that Darkstorm still has technology. The man begs Darkstorm to help the people of Khmer, who spent their whole life relying on robotic slaves, and are now quite lost in this new age without technology. Arizon and Farrell spot the Darkling Lords from afar and decide to return to New Volaric to inform Leoric about the Darklings' new alliance with the people of Khmer. However, Recon spots the two knights and sends a group of Khmerites to attack their vehicle before they can reach New Volaric. The Darkling Lords promise to send some enslaved people to the Khmerites in return for their allegiance. They make a plan and some Kemmerites even disguise themselves and infiltrate Leoric's castle. Unaware of their true identity, the Spectral Knights let the Kemmerites stay in their castle. Here, the Kemmerites steal the Spectral Knights' power staves at night, and get ready to launch an attack along with the Darkling Lords. The Darkling Lords capture the Spectral Knights and, one by one, remove their totems from their armor, leaving the Knights powerless. They then intend to make the Knights work as slaves for the Kemmerites, but Leoric refuses to do so. Darkstorm tells Leoric that he will make the entire population of New Volaric miserable if he does not obey. And finally, Leoric gives in. The Spectral Knights are then made to work for the Darkling Lords and the Kemmerites. When Arzon and Farrell finally manage to return to their city after their vehicle is destroyed, the two try their best to create chaos within Darkstorm's castle in order to free the Spectral Knights. They finally succeed in their endeavors, and also free any other people who are being forced to work as slaves. The episode ends on a good note, as the Spectral Knights once again emerge victorious on their fight against evil. In the next episode, titled Farrell Steps Out, the Spectral Knight Farrell almost ends up getting captured by the Darkling Lords. He then questions his position in the group, and decides to leave after feeling overshadowed by the other knights. When Darkstorm learns that Farrell has left the Spectral Knights, he tries to recruit him to work as a Darkling Lord. Darkstorm even visits Farrell along with Mordred, but Farrell immediately turns down his offer. Darkstorm then tries to lure Leoric into a trap by attacking him with Kravix's spiders that have the ability to induce fear. Leoric gets tricked into thinking that Farrell is in danger when in reality, this is all just a part of Darkstorm's plan. When Farrell learns that Leoric has gone to Darkstorm Castle to free him, he visits the plates himself and is determined to save Leoric's life. The other Spectral Knights also reach the castle, and they learn that Darkstorm has managed to get his hand on Leoric's totem. They work together to rescue Leoric and get his totem back, and it is Farrell who finally breaks Leoric free from a tank where he's being held hostage. The group escapes the castle, and Leoric and Farrell later have a chat where Leoric listens to Farrell's worries and mentors him like a good leader. Some of the memorable characters in the show. Leading the Visionaries on the show consists of Leoric and his group of Spectral Knights, and Darkstorm and his group of Darklings. Leoric is the show's main protagonist, and he's the prince of the city of New Volaric. Merklin has given them the Totem of the Lion, which has given him the power of knowledge. Leoric is a great leader of the Spectral Knights and is unafraid of leading the group into battle against Darkstorm's forces. He's also a fierce protector of the people of Volaric, and he tries his best to ensure that Darkstorm does not trouble them. The other members of the Spectral Knights include Ector, Farrell, Cryotech, Witterquick, Arzon, and Galadria. Ector acts as a lieutenant to Leoric, often advising him on matters related to New Volaric. He's given the Totem of the Fox, and he is one of the few Visionaries that have the power to man vehicles even after the age of technology. Farrell is the youngest member of Leoric's team of knights, and is bestowed with the Totem of the Wolf. The other Spectral Knights, such as Cryotech, Witterquick, and Arzon, are given the totems of the bear, a cheetah, and an eagle, respectively. Galadria is the only female among the group of knights, and she is given the totem of the dolphin. Moreover, Galadria has the power of healing and can tend to the injuries of the other Spectral Knights. On the other hand, Darkstorm is the series' main antagonist, and he leads a group of his Darkling Lords by collecting followers that wish to seize the city of New Volaric. Darkstorm's main followers include Rigon, Mordred, Sindar, Kravex, Lexor, and Viralina. Rigon is a mercenary who is also highly skilled in motoring the vehicles used by Darkstorm's forces. Rigon's totem is a lizard, and he often fights against the Spectral Knight Ector. Mordred is Darkstorm's most loyal follower, who stays by his side even though Darkstorm often bullies him. His animal totem is a beetle, but the special powers include the ability to fight. The Darkling Lord Sindar is the group's oldest member, and he often gets carried away by small animals such as cats in the middle of a fight. He's not their best warrior, but possesses the totem of a gorilla, and the power staff gives him the power of destruction, making him a pretty valuable member of the group. Kravex and Lexor are the other members of Darkstorm's group, and their totems are the Phylot and an armadillo respectively. Kravex also has a power staff that can invoke fear in his opponents, while Lexor's power staff gives him the power to become invulnerable. Last but not least, Viralina is the only female Visionary on Darkstorm's side. She is given the totem of a shark, and she often fights against the Spectral Knight Galadria. The Visionaries are given their powers often by the wizard Merklin, who lives in a shrine on the Iron Mountain. Merklin bestows the Visionaries with their powers and gives them power staves and unique animal totems. In return, he requires them to perform certain tasks and services for him from time to time. Marvelous Verdict, one of 80's finest and most underrated. Visionaries was considered to be a classic cartoon show that has been forgotten over time. It had all the elements of a fun TV show and was packed with action, adventure, and sci-fi elements, making it a perfect watch. It had an intriguing plotline, and the show was full of rich characters with complex story arcs. All the characters had unique powers, which were quite creative and made for an exciting watch. The show's animation was pretty decent, and the show also had a catchy soundtrack. Moreover, the toy line that was introduced alongside the show had attracted many viewers, as they scrambled to collect all the toy figurines of their favorite characters. Visionaries remains to be one of the most underrated shows of the 80s, and is a hidden treasure of a show that's definitely worth a watch. Though Visionaries was not one of the most popular cartoon series of the 80s, it was still an incredible show packed with thrilling elements, ranging from sci-fi to action and adventure, as well as interesting characters and storylines that preached the victory of good over evil. Visionaries: Knights of the Magical Light was a whole package in the form of a cartoon. The toy line that came along the show also captured the viewer's attention at the time. Though The Visionaries is a forgotten show today, it was a very well-produced show that gave us some wonderful memories back in the day. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone!